Okay, you are live with the Guru. Welcome to another edition of Guru's Rant. We're getting ready for the season. It's going to be getting cranked up, as you know. And so I have some fun opinions for you to give you for Guru's Rant. All right. Week 2 NFL preseason games. We're going to talk a little bit about Sha'Carri Richardson and the track event that took place in Oregon, the Prefontaine Classic. We're going to touch on that a little bit, and we're going to touch on teams that Guru says should be worried. All right. So week 2 preseason games. What can we say, right? Also the demise of the University of Nebraska football. At one time, they were a glorious program, one that I followed for almost 40 years, so I can have an opinion on them, a really good one, and understand why they're not winning today. But we'll touch on that as well. So first, let's start with NFL Week 2, shall we? The games were pretty good. I watched the Kansas City Arizona game, and what I came away with was an Arizona team that it just doesn't seem like it's all together. Now, I know that their starters aren't out there on offense or defense. However, I am concerned about Kyler Murray. You know, he just doesn't seem quite himself. I don't know if it's the offensive scheme, but it just doesn't look right. And I don't really know who their running back is. You have James Conner, but he's hurt. Someone's going to have to step up there. The takeaway really, I think, with Kansas City was like they look the closest to efficient of any team that I've seen in the preseason so far. Yeah, they have their little hiccups there, here and there, but they seem to be a little bit more synced than everyone, at least offensively. So that's a good one. Minnesota Vikings and the Denver Broncos. That was a pretty good game. Listen, as far as the quarterback concerned in Denver, Teddy Bridgewater and what's his name? It's at the tip of my tongue. Forgive me. He'll come to mind. But the quarterback controversy that they have in Denver, that seems to be pretty intriguing because on one hand, you have the young guy. I guess he has to make a name for himself for me to really remember his name. That ought to say something because I'm always pretty familiar with people's names. That's no excuse. I'm just saying. But, you know, both of them have performed well in preseason. If I had to do a coin flip, obviously I would take Teddy Bridgewater just because I've seen him play. He's definitely passed the eye test. I remember when they drafted him in 2014 out of the University of Louisville to Minnesota. He was able to step right in and do his thing. They would have beat the Legion of Boom, okay, in that playoff game had that kicker not missed the kick. But not only that, Adrian Peterson fumbled in that game. And I think people sometimes forget how good Teddy Bridgewater really is and can be. We want to keep burying him and saying, well, you know, he's a stopgap. No, he's not a stopgap quarterback. He's only 28 years old. He's 28 years old. He's been in the league for 7 years. Normally, we would be saying a player is ascending. And I think for Vic Fangio, it just seems like a no-brainer that it makes sense to go with the young guy. He looked good in preseason. He had some nice chunk throws. And then listen, there's nothing wrong with chunk throws, but on the 2 drives that Teddy Bridgewater was in there, Teddy Bridgewater took the team down and scored on both drives. That's something that I look at. You know, a little dink and doink. Teddy Bridgewater, he kind of eats up the middle of the field, the outside of the field. He's really methodical. Yes, I mean, he can throw the ball 45, 50 yards if he has to, but they're really going to design plays to where he probably doesn't have to throw it any more than 40 yards. And that's fine. That's a really good distance. So it's not really about arm strength. He's a proven winner. And listen, this team is just missing a quarterback. And so it is tough. But I would say that, if I was a coin flip, Teddy Bridgewater would be the guy. All right, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts, shall we? Carson Wentz supposedly moving around a little bit at practice. That's good news. You want to get Quentin Nelson under contract, make him happy. They have all the pieces around them. This was the team that went to the playoffs last year. Carson Wentz has to prove all the skeptics right, not wrong, but right, because, everyone is high on him. Even though he played horribly last year, he's going into a situation now where everything around him is good. He has a lot of familiarity with the offense because of Frank Reich being in Philadelphia while he was there. But keep in mind, it was Nick Foles who blossomed under that offense, And listen, I wish Carson all the luck. What he has to do is stay healthy. He just seems to be a walking injury report, If he goes out there, I mean, you don't have to hit him hard. Sometimes he's going to get hurt just the way he moves. And so that's the concern of the Indianapolis Colts. Can he make it through a 17-game season? Because he has young pieces around him. And listen, they're going to rely on him to do that. And he will have no excuses after this season. I wish him well. Okay. Let's move on, shall we? The Raiders. Okay. The Raiders, look, Nathan Peterman, the GOAT. He was on the roster last year. John Gruden said he was a really smart guy. Don't be surprised if they keep him, because I can assure you he wouldn't be on any roster without John Gruden. Can you believe he was making $2.4 million, something like that? Like, there's something to be said about that. That's money that could be in other spaces. And you're using that kind of money on a guy that's not even second string. He might not even make the team. He should not make the team. He should not even have made it over, DeShone Kizer, but that's another story, Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. All right. So we'll jump back to some NFL news. And right now, we're going to go to track and field. And we're going to talk about the Prefontaine Classic that took place over the weekend. It's the top track athletes in the world. Majority of them were there. And, of course, the event of the day was the 100-meter dash with Sha'Carri Richardson, Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, and Elaine Hara. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. First of all, let's just start at the beginning here with Sha'Carri Richardson, all right? Now, she's a young lady. She's from Dallas, Texas. She actually went to Dallas's Carter High School. For those who don't know but are familiar with the movie Friday Night Lights, that was the high school in the movie. That school has some prominent athletes that come out of there. It's a pretty decent district in the Dallas area that it happens to be predominantly black, and it's a big school, and they do really well. So that's where she's from. All right, now let's fast forward a little bit. She's dominant. She enters the University of Texas in 2019. She wins the 100-meter dash, I think, in 10.87. I think she ran a 10.87. Okay. I think she ran a 202, but I don't believe that was really her event. The 100 is really what she's known for. So I don't really have her numbers on the 200 because I'm really just focused on the 100 and what took place this weekend and what preceded this past weekend. All right. Now, Obviously, she could not be in the Olympics because she had a positive drug test. It's not a performance enhancer, but however, the rule says you cannot use narcotics, so you're done. And besides, in countries like Japan, they don't play that stuff anyway, so they didn't have an issue with it. And then comes the arrogance of "you miss me yet" or whatever she tweeted. I don't Twitter or whatever. So she said that, and when I heard, I looked on YouTube and I heard she said that, I thought to myself, wow, that's pretty bold and, arrogant for someone who just basically made themselves look bad and people around them look bad for all the work that they put in with her to get her to this point. Much less her sponsors. Okay. But, that right there, you can expect some bravado from world-class athletes, so it's not uncommon to have that kind of bravado. And we were celebrating her. We were like, oh, some of us were, oh, poor Sha'Carri, she can't compete in the Olympics. Oh, it's racist. It didn't have anything to do with that. She broke the rules. The rules are rules, period. And she didn't want it bad enough. And maybe she didn't know something that we didn't know, because on that island that's down south of Florida called Jamaica, the islands, they run. They run. Now, I don't know if most people know, when you think of Jamaica, you see what they have on the commercials and you see the blue crystal waters. But go on Vice TV and really get a good look at Jamaica. You have the haves and have-nots like you do anywhere, but especially in a particularly beautiful island country, which was a sugar cane plantation, years ago. It's very destitute. It has corruption, even in the beautiful landscapes of that country. And my point is that, these ladies take running seriously. This is what they do. Well, kind of like in America, a player wants to go to the NBA or the NFL, they're going to have that single mind focus. Like, okay, that's where I want to go. I'm going to work hard, And really, some people, not all, don't have the distractions that most of us would have while we're trying to pursue something that we like, whether it be economics, demographics, poverty, whatever, anything that's going to distract from the process of you getting to where you want to go with your sport. So, these ladies, they run, they realize that if they run and they run fast, that they can make a lot of money. This is their profession. Right? Even if they don't get any endorsements, which I haven't seen any of them on TV, in any commercial, which is a shame. The fastest woman in the world should have a commercial. There's something to be said about that. The fastest man in the world should have a commercial. There's something to be said about that. I don't care who it is. They should. There's something to be said. It's a hell of an accomplishment. You're the fastest person in the world. That's very few people can say that. So anyway, this is what they do. And they realize that if they do this and they take it seriously, and they're running against the best over there. There's probably some people that didn't make the Olympic team in 100 in Jamaica who could probably beat Sha'Carri Richardson. All right. I believe there is. But back to where we go. Back to the Olympics. Back right before the Olympics, as the Olympics were going on, and the 100-meter dash hadn't started for the women yet. And she says, "Miss me?" That's what I heard she said. And I thought, wow. So, okay, let me back up a little bit. Before that, she ran a 10.72 at the Nationals earlier this year. The U.S. Nationals blazed the field. 6th fastest time ever at that time. 10.72. Incredible. I'm not going to take anything from it. It was incredible. 10.72. However, when the Olympics started and she made that comment, "Miss me yet," and she wanted that sympathy. I understand she had some things going on. But when those ladies, Elaine Herrera, Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, who's one of the most decorated Jamaican Olympian ever, when they were in Japan running that 100 meters, and Elaine Herrera ran a 10.61. I would have been, if I was Sha'Carri Richardson's coach, I would have been on the phone right after she crossed the finish line and said, "We got work to do. All right. We got the Prefontaine Classic coming up in 2 months. We got work to do." That's plenty of time. Plenty of time. People say, "Oh, she didn't have time." What has she been doing? You train. What has she been doing? The world doesn't care about your problems when you're an entertainer. The world wants you, and they don't want any excuses. And you look bad. And I'll tell you something else. When she saw that 10.61, I bet you she regretted putting that "you miss me." You miss me. You know why? Because that 10.61, that's 1/10 faster than she ever ran. Now, for those, let me put this in perspective. 1/10 is like, that's enough of a distance when you're a world-class track runner. All right. Now, let's fast forward to the Prefontaine. Like, she was shook. I can assure you she was shook when she saw that 10.61. And I bet you her coaches were shook because they know that she had never been there yet. She had never been there yet. And then she comes to the Prefontaine Classic, and Elaine Herrera runs a 10.54. So put that in. Let me put this in context with you. For you, excuse me. 10.72, which is Sha'Carri Richardson's fastest time, versus 10.54, Elaine Herrera's time. That's almost 0.2 of a second faster. So in track and field, that's like this. You might as well be 5 yards apart. That's what you're about, which is a wide gap in world-class sprinting. And let me tell you, after 30 meters, she realized that, oh my God, these girls are blowing by me. She knew it, and she kind of gave up. She finished because she didn't want to look super bad for the cameras. But after 30 meters, she tapped out. She knew. She's like, oh my God. She's shook. She is shook. And listen, I hope she recovers from this and like humble herself. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. It's just that simple. And I think we kind of overhyped her, and we didn't realize, because we haven't had an American gold medal sprinter in 25 years, I think we really clung to that and said, oh, she's going to be our hopeful. Not even close. Yes, she does have work to do. She better go back to the lab, because Elaine Herrera, she's just starting to. She was third in the Olympic trials in her country. Barely made it. She was third. And now she ran a 10.54. So that's all I have to say on that. Like, be humble. Know that you have work to do, young lady. And, stay out of front of the cameras until you have a polished media person. You need to be polished up. You're not very good with your media presence, your emotions showing. I mean, you can work on that. You have a lot of promise. More promise than a lot of people. You're blessed. Okay. So that's all I have to say on that. Okay. Back to NFL. Dak Prescott has a shoulder issue. I'm not sure where it came from. We as people out of the know, have no clue how bad it is. So, that's something to be concerned about. Um, you have Garrett Gilbert as a backup, but he is not the answer. You have RG3, who's a free agent. He's available. I don't understand why he's not in anyone's camp. He's only 31 years old. He's not all beat up. He's fresh because he's been a backup. Just don't understand it. But there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that are still available because I'll tell you, that's not a good situation to be in, to have your starting quarterback fragile right at the beginning of the season. Yeah, so I would say teams that probably aren't going to make the playoffs. This is Guru's rant. This is just on, my own observation. Obviously, you can, I know if it's your team, you're not going to believe it. You're going to be hopeful. But teams like the Raiders, I'd be shocked if they gave Derek Carr an extension because he's going to go out. The Raiders are not going to finish 500 football this year. They're about 7 wins. Now, granted, they went out and got some pieces. He did that when he first got to the Raiders. He thought he could get players with names who were past their prime. And it didn't work out at all. And now you go out and you get pieces that you can plug in because you can't draft very well. Mooring, who the safety got out of TCU, he should be good. He should develop into a good player. You swung and missed on Arden Key. And your other Clellan Ferrell, I mean, unless he breaks out this year, I don't know. You bombed there too. And Suggs, Henry Ruggs III. I'm sorry. He's got 17 games. He's got to have over 1,000 yards this year. And guess what? If he does it, I'm not going to blame Ruggs. I'm going to blame you, John Gruden and Derek Carr. But no, the Raiders will not make the playoffs. It'll be 4 consecutive years that John Gruden will not make the playoffs, but his job will be safe. Only some people can fail up. Cincinnati, you're not going to make the playoffs. Sorry. It's going to be tough. This is going to be a shocker. Cleveland, you're not going to make the playoffs. It's going to be tough, but you're not going to make the playoffs. It's just listen. Baker's really not that guy yet, and just as I said, they paid Nick Chubb. You better pay him first, which they did. I think you wait till the season's over, or maybe towards the end of the season if Baker is really doing it, because every season is different. You could have built on last season, but that don't mean anything. You could have built on last season and you can be here the very next season. I've seen it happen many, many times in the NFL. Many, many years. Teams that are like, oh, they're supposed to be ascending. In actuality, descending. Excuse me. You have to have the right pieces and the right leadership along with talented players. All 3 of those have to be together. That's what winning teams have. Those are teams that'll will themselves to a win when they're down. And a lot of teams don't possess that because the leadership at the top isn't like that. The Jets. Okay, Robert Saleh had a good defense in San Francisco. Guess what? You're not in San Francisco anymore. You're in New York. And guess what? I've been watching the Jets for 42 years. This team is not even close to good. I hate to say it. You say Zach Wilson is the guy. Like, he is the guy. But I'm telling you, he's not the guy. And he's going to catch some pains this year. But yes, that they're not going to make the playoffs. I'll tell you another team who's really good, but who's not going to do it. The Dolphins. The Dolphins have pieces. They just don't have the quarterback. That's going to be tough for them. That's going to be really tough. Let's see who else. Washington. You were ascending last year, but that's only because we didn't have Dak. Let's face it. We lost so many games and we still had a shot. You guys are supposed to be better this year. You do have really good players. But guess what? You're not going to make the playoffs. Okay? The Giants, you're not going to make the playoffs. We know that. Okay? Atlanta, you're not going to make the playoffs. Carolina, you're not going to make the playoffs. The LA Rams. That's right, I said it. The LA Rams. You're not going to make the playoffs. And let me tell you, let me explain the Rams. I've seen this before, where you get an elite shutdown corner. You got the defensive front sewed up. Linebackers sewed up. They even got a Division II player that they drafted this year that looks like a steal. Like he had like 7 tackles and 2 sacks and the strip fumble the other night. He was just going crazy for the Rams. But their Achilles heel is Matthew Stafford. Because listen, okay, their tight end is decent, but you're going with Cooper Kupp and you're going with Reynolds. Okay, they're decent receivers, but they're not elite. And you're asking Matthew Stafford to like, because he has a missile arm, that somehow he's going to make them elite. No, they're going to be what they are. And Matthew Stafford just has to get the ball to him. Matthew Stafford is not playing in the same division. He's playing in a way tougher division, where the secondaries are even better than the secondaries he was in when he was in the black and blue division, the NFC North. This ain't Green Bay, all right? This ain't Minnesota. You're going against the 49ers secondary, right? You're going against Seattle, right? You're going against some good teams in your own division. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But that's going to be the shocker because people expect him to go to the Super Bowl. But Matthew Stafford is going to show he's that guy. He's going to be the one that is going to hold them up. Listen, he can throw the ball. I'm not going to argue that. But what has Matthew Stafford done? We'll stay tuned, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Of course, the Cardinals, they're going to knock them. Cardinals are going to knock them out the playoffs, and the Cardinals aren't going to make the playoffs. San Diego, you're not going to make the playoffs. Sorry. So there you go. That's Guru's rant for the day. I just wanted to give you a little something, dose. We're getting ready for week 3 tonight, Monday night. You have the Saints and I think Baltimore. Oh, well, let me just put this in about the Saints. Jameis Winston should be the starter. He should be the starter. If he plays tonight, he controls his own destiny. He needs to go out and play lights out football, meaning hitting all your reads, checks, boom, boom, boom. Play like the man you are. You are that dude. All right. This Guru's rant. Thank y'all for watching. See if you watch on the rerun. On the rerun, I will always come back and give you my honest opinion on things and, try to give you the best content I can. So thank you on the rewatch. Even if it's one person, I thank you. But that means something, that I'm not doing this for nothing, that you kind of dig my information. And keep in mind, I'm going to be giving pregame predictions, and I will be keeping stats of my victories for every week so you guys can have something to go by. All right? Over and out. Guru's rant.